Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I have a wrap-up video, and that is for my O.W.L.S magical readathon. I'm really excited to film this because I was able to achieve one career, which was becoming a Hogwarts professor, and I'm really excited with that. So basically the magical readathon was created by the YouTuber Book Roast, and I will leave the link to her video down below where she explains what the whole readathon is. But basically she created this amazing readathon based on the O.W.L.S test and the Newts test that the students take at Hogwarts, and depending on what test you take and which one you pass, you can choose a career. And she made like all of these amazing careers. So for me, I really wanted to double major and have a career in both Hogwarts professor and curse breaker, but unfortunately I was not able to complete curse breaker. I only had 2 books left to read, which I'm actually currently working on them right now. So I guess maybe I can say I have like an honorary degree to do curse breaker, but I did complete the 7 books that I needed to do for a Hogwarts professor. So also really quick, the O.W.L.S magical readathon did occur in April, but apparently I missed it. I don't know where I was in April, but I completely missed it, and so I decided to do it for May, which is why it's kind of my May wrap-up as well. And then the Newts readathon is going to be in August, and that one I will not be missing. So let's just jump right into all the books that I read, because I read 7 books, as I said, in May. So for my ordinary wizarding levels results, I was able to get an exceeds expectation because I read more than 6 books. If you read more than 9, you could get an outstanding. I think that's it. Anyways, let's just jump into Hogwarts professor. So in order for me to have become a Hogwarts professor, I had to have passed 7 O.W.L.S in total, like I mentioned. 1 had to be Defense Against the Dark Arts, and then a subject that you want to teach, and then 5 additional subjects of your choice. So I decided to teach Transfiguration because I am a Ravenclaw and I love that class, and I love Professor McGonagall, and she teaches Transfiguration and she's head of Ravenclaw house, so I just thought it was kind of perfect. For Transfiguration, I had to read a book with sprayed edges or a red cover. So for that, I went with Sadie by Courtney. This actually ended up working out really well because this was also our Muggle Studies book club pick for April, and I read it at the beginning of May because our live show was like towards the first week of May. So I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. This is a young adult thriller, and just the story is so unique, the way it's written, and it's a really hard story. I'll get to that in a sec, but basically in this story we follow 2 perspectives. We follow Sadie. She is an 18-year-old girl, and her sister Maddie was brutally murdered, and she is out to seek her sister's killer to get revenge. And then we follow Wes McCrae, and he hosts a podcast, and he is doing a podcast based on the disappearance of Sadie and Maddie. It's very interesting, the timelines and like the present of Sadie and then the present of the podcast. You see a lot of the same characters in Sadie's perspective and then in the podcast, and it's just really interesting how you think one way about a certain character, but then you get a whole different way of seeing them in another perspective. So some of the triggers I want to warn you about in this book are substance abuse, child neglection, child endangerment, and pedophilia. So really tough subjects to kind of read through, but I will give Courtney Summers this. She doesn't sensationalize anything, and that is something that we discussed in our live show, which I will leave linked down below. I also have a reading vlog of my thoughts on Sadie linked down below. Now, my only gripe was the ending, and if you're a reader where you don't need a perfect ending, you don't need the story to wrap up in a pretty little bow like I do, then you won't have any issues with it. But for me, I don't like questions. Like I said, I like my stories to be nicely wrapped up, and it didn't do that in a good way, I guess, but I really wanted that finale, but I understand why Courtney Summers didn't do it, because once again, she doesn't sensationalize any of these issues. I had trouble with the ending, but I still think this is a solid book, a solid 5 out of 5 stars, or 4.75 out of 5 stars, but I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Okay, so the next book that I read was for Defense Against the Dark Arts, and that went with the spell Reducto, and so you had to read a book with the title beginning with the letter R. And so for this, I read the Runaways of Volume 4 by Brian K. Vaughan. I actually read multiple volumes of the Runaways in May, but I had to kind of pick and choose which volume went with which challenge. So for Defense Against the Dark Arts, I went with Volume 4. This one was my least favorite of the 4 that I read, and I ended up giving it a, I think, 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was okay. I felt like the story just kind of took a turn in a different direction. The dynamics was a little different than the first 3, so I didn't enjoy it as much as the first 3, unfortunately. So keeping on the Runaways, I also read Volume 3, so we'll just go backwards. So I read Volume 3 for Care of Magical Creatures, and that was to read a book with a land animal on the cover. And that one had a velociraptor on the cover, and that is a land animal, even though they're extinct. It is still a land animal, so I'm going with it. And I adored Volume 3. The ending was amazing. I was not expecting it. It was shocking and surprising, and there were twists. It was so, so good. So I rated it a 5 out of 5 stars. Fantastic. If you like graphic novels, but you're kind of new to the superhero comic books, then I think you should definitely read the first 3 volumes of the Runaways. Like, you can read the first 3 volumes and be completely satisfied with the story. And yes, of course, you can continue on because the story is not complete, but it's a good, satisfying ending, and I was quite happy with, like, I think I should have just stopped, and I think I may stop with just Volume 4 and then try the Runaways by Rainbow Rowell, because Hannah is just raving about those. But yes, those first 3 volumes are fantastic. So then going on to Volume 2, that was for History of Magic, and that was to read a book that was published at least 10 years ago. So that's why I had to choose Volume 2, because that was published in 2005 to 2008, because it was published in different issues. I enjoyed Volume 2 as well. I ended up giving it, I believe, either a 4.5 or a 5 out of 5 stars. So next I read a book for Muggle Studies, which was to read a contemporary, and for this I read Again But Better by Christine Riccio. Christine is a fellow booktuber. She is one of the original booktubers. She started back in, like, I want to say 2006 or 7 or something like that. She's been doing booktube for a long, long time, and she recently published a book that came out in May, and I was lucky enough to get an ebook arc of it from NetGalley, and I believe I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. I feel like it was a solid start as an author. I enjoyed the plot. I enjoyed the premise. It's perfect in the middle for me. So basically in this story we're following Shane, and Shane is in her, I want to say her junior year, her senior year in college, and she is wanting to do it again, but better. So basically her first couple years of college, she didn't really make any friends. She didn't really give herself that college experience, so now she wants to do it again but better. And so she goes abroad to London and she tries to fall in love, and it's really cute. I love the setting in college. I feel like we don't get a lot of young adult or new adult books where it's set in college. That's really one of the settings that I want to read more of. Most contemporaries are set in high school, so when I can find a contemporary setting set in college, I want to read all of those. So I love that. I also liked the mixed media. There's text messaging, there's emails, just a whole bunch of different mixed media. Also, the setting of the book, you see a lot of things that you would see back in 2011. I really like that. I felt that it made it realistic. It made us kind of go back to that time setting, even though it's only, you know, 10-ish years ago. That's how historical fiction books start. Like, you need those elements for it to be historical fiction. Like, if you read a book set in the 1920s, you want to see things that were, you know, there in the 1920s. So I know it's not a historical fiction book, but I did like seeing those things that I would have seen. So I was in college around that time, and so it was amazing, like, seeing those things, because it would make me think about and reminisce on my time in college. My only gripe was the writing style. I felt like it was a tad juvenile and a little chaotic. It was kind of all over the place, but what was kind of great was that you can really hear Christine on the pages. So if you watch Christine and you watch her videos, she's very charismatic, and I felt like I could really see that in her book. So it's kind of a good thing, but also a little, like, I had trouble with the writing style a few times, and I could see why people had trouble with the writing style, but you really can see Christine in the pages, and you can see Christine in her character, and I really appreciated that, especially since I adore Christine and I really want to support her, and I've been watching her channel for years now, so it was kind of fun to see that character as if it were Christine back in college. So I enjoyed it. Also, our Muggle Studies book club pick for June is Again But Better, and our live show is going to be, I want to make sure this is correct, I believe it is going to be June 29th. So it is the last Saturday in June. I hope you guys are able to come join us, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of talk on Again But Better. The next book I had to read was for Ancient Runes, and that was a retelling. So I listened to the audiobook The Wrath in the Dawn by Renee Audier, and I loved it. I had been wanting to read it for a while now, and I was kind of procrastinating because for some reason I thought it was a dystopian, but it turns out it is a retelling of Arabian Nights, and it was amazing. I loved it. I think I gave it a 4.5 or a 4 out of 5 stars. I loved the main character. I felt like she was just so strong, and I loved her determination. I also liked all of the other side characters as well. I love the magic, and we only got like a taste of magic in this book, and I do want to continue on with the series, and I want to see the magic system develop. There's a lot where the story can go, and I think it's The Rose and the Dagger is book 2. So I really loved it. And the last book I want to talk about was for the class Arithmancy, and that was to read a work written by more than one author, and this was one of my more anticipated books for 2019, and that was Aurora Rising by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I loved this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. This was our Muggle Studies book club pick for May. We have a live show, which I will leave linked down below. I also have a reading vlog on Aurora Rising, but I basically listened to the audiobook in one day. It was so good. I loved the audiobook. It has a whole cast of characters, and it's just so immersive to the story. Not as good as the Illuminae Files, but still amazing. The thing with the Illuminae Files is that it's so unique, and it's written so differently, and it's just so cool that it's really hard to kind of top it, but I think they did a fantastic job once again, creating an amazing story set in space with amazing characters and great banter and an amazing world, and I really, really loved it. So in this story, we are following multiple groups of people, but our main character is Tyler, and Tyler is one of the top students at the Aurora Academy, and on draft day, he is allowed to pick, I want to say 6 recruits to create a team, but unfortunately something goes wrong the day before draft day and he ends up rescuing our other main character, Ori, who has been cryogenically frozen for 200 years. And so he misses draft day and he basically gets stuck with a band of characters that nobody wants. It was so much fun. Like, these characters have so much sass, and I'm really excited to see the story grow. There's a little bit of cliche, like a little insta love, but it's okay. I was able to get behind it because it wasn't too insta love. It was like unrequited insta love. I didn't see kind of this relationship growing. I didn't see it coming, so I like that. I like when the synopsis doesn't give you too much and you can't pick the story out from it. There is no way that I was able to guess everything that happened in here from the synopsis, and I love that. I like books that are filled with surprises, and that was definitely this one. So if you can get your hands on the audiobook, I highly, highly recommend it. If not, I still recommend you reading it. There is a little bit of mixed media in it, not as much as Illuminae, so if you had trouble reading Illuminae because of the mixed media, but you still really like J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman's writing, and you like space and science fiction, then I highly recommend picking this one up. You'll probably fly through this one and you'll probably find it an easier read. Okay, so those are all the books that I read to become a Hogwarts professor. So that is my wrap up for my O.W.L.S Magical Readathon in May for the Magical Readathon. Stay tuned for my wrap up for the August Readathon in a couple months. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you next time. Bye!